So Netflix just released a full 5-minute scene from Season 5, and it's bigger than anybody expected. This explains why Will is so key and what his story might end up as. So let's break it all down. So for years, the show has been circling around one single moment that never quite added up: the night Will Byers disappeared. Season 5 opens by returning to that night and showing us what we missed on the other side. The clip starts in the Upside Down with Will already trapped there, and right away the atmosphere is different from how we remember it. This isn't just some scared kid hiding in his backyard fort. Will is holding on to the last piece of his normal life in a strange and terrifying world, Castle Byers. Except now it's decaying inside this toxic, mirrored version of Hawkins. He sings quietly to himself for comfort, the same song that used to connect him to his brother in his bedroom, using it like something to anchor himself while living a nightmare. The Demogorgon shows up soon after, and the way it moves is that of a hunter with a clear target in mind. Will isn't totally defenseless, though. He's got his father's gun, his reflexes are sharp, he fires shots, and he bolts. The whole encounter is rougher and more frantic than we might have expected back in Season 1. He climbs up this massive structure made of branches, tree-like but beckoningly wrong, gripping his backpack, pushing himself higher with that burst of adrenaline that only kicks in when you're fighting to survive. What happens next is rough. After jumping to another tree, his bag catches on something, the strap pulls tight, and the entire moment hangs on this single piece of fabric. Then it tears. Will crashes into the ground with enough force to knock the wind out of him and send him to sleep. For a second, it looks like Will is done, about to be torn apart in a scene that'd give any kid nightmares. Then, everything changes in a way that completely reshapes the show's mythology. The Demogorgon doesn't kill him, it drags him somewhere. We see the upside-down version of the downtown Hawkins library again. But when Demogorgon hauls him inside, it does something that immediately destroys the old assumption that it was just a predator looking for food or some kind of alpha being. It lowers its head in a bow. It submits, lowers itself in front of a master. Waiting there in the shadows the whole time is Vecna. That's the real revelation in this opening sequence. Season 5 makes it crystal clear that Vecna was the heart of everything from day one. The library isn't just where Joyce and Hopper eventually found Will in that awful condition. It's where Vecna personally took possession of him and left something behind. The Demogorgon isn't the architect of anything. It's basically a demonic delivery service, a simple soldier following orders. The way the creature backs off after handing Will over, the traces of fear and obedience in its body language, all of it spells out a hierarchy that was only really hinted at before. Vecna issues commands, the monsters obey. But why was Will chosen in the first place? Why wasn't he just killed like so many others? Vecna approaches Will with this unsettling calmness that's more disturbing than straight-up murder would be. He talks to him with what almost sounds like twisted fondness or familiarity, as if this encounter has been on his mind for some time. Then that weird tube thing, fleshy and vine-like, goes into Will's mouth and starts pumping something into him. Firstly, this is probably the creepiest and most gross thing in the whole show. Secondly, we've actually seen this image before in Season 1. What this new scene does is slow things down and let the full grossness and gravity sink in. This isn't some random infection spreading through contact. It looks targeted and planned, like Vecna is inserting an actual, literal piece of himself directly into Will. This makes Will way more than just a prisoner. It suggests he's being converted into something like an anchor point, a container, a living storage system for Vecna's consciousness or something. When Vecna talks about the beautiful things they're going to accomplish together, it doesn't sound like generic villain dialogue. It sounds like a plan to make Will a permanent part of Vecna's life until his usefulness ends. This feeds directly into what we've been hearing about Season 5 leading up to this. The whole pitch has been that the story would loop back around, that the final season would explain why Will got taken, why he never fully recovered, and why the Upside Down kept its focus on him. These first 5 minutes deliver on that pitch right out of the gate, letting the rest of the season have more emotional and explosive plot points. They confirm Will wasn't grabbed randomly, that everything from that fateful night was guided by intent, and that Vecna was pulling the strings the entire time. That one shift in perspective makes the earlier seasons reorganize themselves. Will's sensitivity to the Upside Down in Season 2, his visions, his role as an unwilling spy, the feeling that something from that world stayed attached to him even after the rescue. It all connects smoothly with this new scene. The discomfort, the coughing fits, the feeling that he's never quite right or normal, those don't come across as vague leftovers anymore. They're now dark symptoms of a deep connection that Vecna built in that library. Before we get deeper into the breakdown, make sure you like and subscribe, or Vecna's gonna make you his new beta. This opening scene also hammers home another critical detail. Vecna is insanely patient. The idea that he's been part of this story since the very beginning, orchestrating some kind of grand chess game, shows his immense patience and planning. It reinforces the sense that his war against Hawkins, against Eleven, against everything living, is not thrown together on the fly, but is highly organized and careful. It has stages. Will's kidnapping is stage 1, not just a preview for some other monster down the line, but the cornerstone of Vecna's entire strategy. Will is the wildcard that Vecna's been planning to use this entire time. This is where the question of what exactly Vecna did to Will becomes central to understanding where things are headed for the rest of the season. The few minutes we've seen clearly show that whatever got forced into Will is Vecna's actual organic material, particles, and tissue that blur the line between infection and possession. If that's the case, then Will works as a kind of living tether, a place where Vecna's essence can hide, rebuild, or extend itself across dimensions. That lines up with the line from more recent promotional clips, where Vecna says he needs Will one last time. The seed planted in the library is still active. Season 5 is when that seed is supposed to finish growing. Following that logic leads to one of the biggest theories that fans are putting together. Will is Vecna's backup plan. If Vecna's physical form gets destroyed, even after it's been upgraded to seemingly be fire-resistant, the fragment buried deep within Will could theoretically take over, and he'd be the new Vecna. That creates a problem with no clean solution for our gang of friends. To destroy Vecna permanently, the group might have to deal with what's been hiding inside their friend this whole time, and the clearest way to do that is killing him. That's the emotional gut punch of these first 5 minutes. It retroactively makes Will's survival into something morally tangled and questionable. He's alive because Vecna wanted him as insurance. He's connected because Vecna needed him, and eventually that won't be the case any longer. Season 5, based on what's been released so far, seems ready to keep that tension at the core of its final arc. Every protective moment, every worried glance toward Will now carries the weight of what happened in that library so long ago. He's no longer just a boy. He could be an otherworldly ticking time bomb. From here, the full picture of Season 5 starts coming together. The setup now revolves around 3 connected elements which are core to the story: Vecna's long game, Will's function as a chosen anchor, and the tightening of everything straight back to Season 1. The 5-minute scene delivers on the promise that old mysteries would get resolved, not by changing what happened, but by revealing the hidden layer underneath. Will's disappearance is finally treated as the intentional launch of Vecna's whole apocalyptic story, not a standalone incident that later seasons tried to avoid. It was all for a reason, and it's coming to a head. We also need to think about the new characters and shifting dynamics that will also shape what the final season looks like. One of the biggest additions is Dr. K, played by the legendary Linda Hamilton, stepping into the scientific and government space that Brenner used to occupy. Rather than offering a softer alternative, this casting of an actress known for the hardcore role of Sarah Connor suggests a harsher, more aggressive response to the upside-down crisis. She'll be someone who recognizes the threat is no longer experimental or academic, but instead something that needs to be burned down for good. Bringing in a character like this fits perfectly alongside the crazy revelation about Vecna's control and Will's link to him. The human side of the conflict is adapting too, introducing someone who treats this as a final emergency, not a chance to study something interesting or mess with powers. Looking at all these pieces together, a clear direction forms of what Season 5 is going to be about. The first 5 minutes establish Vecna's control over the story's very beginning back in Season 1. The surrounding rumors and episode names confirms the show plans to draw a direct line from that night in 1983 to the ultimate confrontation at the end. Will sits at the center of that line not as a passive victim, but as the active and fragile point where Vecna's influence and the human cost meet. That tension alone, the fear that Will may need to die, is enough to separate Season 5 from earlier chapters, giving it a specific emotional focus instead of just an interesting story. Beyond the main series, there are already hints and reveals about how the Stranger Things universe is getting expanded on, with projects exploring different parts of the timeline and more unique tones. Animated stories filling gaps between earlier seasons, potential live-action spin-offs focused on fresh characters. All of it points to Netflix's plan to keep this world going. What matters for understanding Season 5 is how that context reflects back onto the core show. The main series is being positioned as the major, defining story, the arc that justifies those extensions. The choice to open its final season by carefully addressing one of its oldest mysteries really shows that sense of responsibility. All of this comes back to one simple, disturbing fact that this reveal locks into place. From the first night in the woods to whatever final battle is still coming, nothing about Will Byers happened by chance. Vecna chose him. Vecna used him. Vecna might still be inside him. Okay, that could have been worded a little different, but you get the point. Season 5 is entirely built around that revelation. Every theory about destroying Vecna, every hope about who survives, now has to factor in the reality that the boy they rescued in Season 1 could be the variable that determines how the story can possibly end in Season 5, whether in tears of joy or sorrow. The first 5 minutes don't provide that final answer, but they frame the rest of the show perfectly. That's where everything stands at the moment. The opening sequence has converted an old mystery into the groundwork for the final and most dramatic chapter, confirmed Vecna's dominant presence from the absolute beginning, and positioned Will in a role that's equally terrifying and potentially heroic. So that's everything we know from the first 5 minutes. Are you hyped for Season 5? Are there any secrets we missed? Let us know in the comments below, and if you want to see more Stranger Things content and theories, click the video on screen now.